Hey everybody, today I am going to show you how to properly and safely operate a space heater. As you know, we are still in the cold months. We are getting towards mid-March now, but it still tends to get pretty cold around here, at least in the northeastern US. So one thing I do want to do is I do want to show you exactly how you can use these safely in the room that you choose, because as you know, unfortunately we do have a lot of instances where people have house fires and other instances where someone could get hurt because of these heaters. So I want to show you how you can use these heaters so that risk is as minimal as possible. So what we're going to be using here today is my 1960s or 1970s Markel heater. I'm using this heater in particular because I know that the heat output of this heater is very strong. So I figured this would be a good, let's say, strongest case scenario, for lack of a better term, to show you the best setups possible so you can use a heater in your room and not have any problems. So one of the first things that you should do if you're going to use a space heater is take a look around the room and see what combustibles you have, meaning stuff that can catch fire. So right immediately, as you can see, we have the area rug. That's one thing to take into consideration. We have a scratching thing for the cats, a little bed tunnel for them. And we also have a couple of couches here, as you can see. We have a couch right here, and we have a couch right there. And on said couches, you can see that we have a few pillows, and there's a pillow right there too, and we also have a couple of blankets, as you can see. So that's good thing to take note of, so you know what to keep not too close to the heater, and you shouldn't have any issues. Sometimes when you have windows like we do, you may have some hanging curtains, but thankfully we don't have that in this instance, so that's one thing we don't have to worry about. Now, one of the things they say about heaters, or rather about space heaters and furniture, is that you want to keep them a minimum of 3 feet away from the furniture. Considering how strong this heater is, I like to go a little bit further than that. I like to keep this heater, I'd say, 4 to 5 feet away from the furniture. Because also, don't forget, while you're sitting here, let's say you have a blanket over yourself, your legs will go out a little bit further, and the blanket sometimes drapes over that, which means it's going to be a little bit closer to the heater. So you want to make sure that you have a good, safe distance away, especially from the blanket if you have it over you. And whenever you connect the heater, if possible, your best option is to plug it directly into the wall. Now, some of you may have questions about extension cords. Unless you absolutely have to, don't use an extension cord. It's the safest thing. The safest thing to do is to plug it directly into the wall. If you have to use one by chance, stay tuned. We'll get into extension cords a little bit later in the video. And also, when you plug in the heater to the wall, you want to make sure that there's plenty of room. And also, you can see that the wire for the heater is nice and slack. You can see it's able to rest calmly. It's not being pulled on the wall or anything. Having the wires slack like that is the safest thing that you can do. And also, whenever you have something plugged in like this, do not in any way cover the wire. Because when the heater's on fully, sometimes the wire could heat up just a little bit. If it warms up a little bit, that's normal. But at the same time, if the wire heats up, you want to be able to dissipate that heat. You don't want it to get warmer and warmer. That could possibly cause a fire. So your best bet is to have the heater plugged in directly into the wall and not cover the wire in any way. And over here, I'm also going to be using my infrared thermometer here. So we're also going to take a couple of temperature readings once this heater is up and running, just to show you temperatures of what, let's say, the area rug is and temperatures that the furniture is. So you can see when you're at a good distance and everything is proper, you're at safe temperatures and you won't have to worry about fires happening. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to turn this heater on fully. So so this particular heater has radiant heat and fan forced heat. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and let this heater fully warm up, and then we'll be back. Okay, so we've had the heater running for a few minutes now, or I'd say maybe 10 minutes. And as you can see, it's obviously fully warmed up by now. So I just took a measurement. The heater is about, let's say, 3 3/4 feet away from the couch. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the temperatures of the area rug and also of the couch right here that the heater's facing. So we're going to get my thermometer. Okay, so let's see here. So I'm going to take a measurement of the, you can see the laser point right there. Okay, we're going to take a measurement just below the heater. All right, as you can see, we have roughly 104, 105 degrees Fahrenheit. That may seem kind of warm to you, but as long as you're below, let's say, if your rug was getting up to, let's say, 150, 160 degrees Fahrenheit, that could be a problem. So you definitely don't want to get that high. But as you can see, we are well below that temperature, so the rug will be warm, but it's a totally safe temperature. And obviously, as we move away from the heater, you can see it got a little bit warmer there for a second, but as we move away, it cools down naturally. Okay, and then we go back, gets warmer again, as you can see. Alright, so now let's go ahead and take a measurement of the couch where the heater's facing. There's the laser point right there. And as you can see, we're about just about 80 degrees on the bottom, and go up to the couch. Gets a little bit warmer. So roughly, highest point was about 93, 94 degrees. So as you can see, we are well within very safe temperatures with the heater. So as you can see, the heater is facing the couch, but as you can see, it's a good distance away, not too close. So there's plenty of heat dissipation before it gets to the couch. So as you can see, with this setup, you're not going to have any problems. The heater is a good distance away. Oh, excuse me, and we're at a safe temperature range. And as long as you're here, that's also important as well. Whenever you operate a space heater like this, you always want to keep it. You don't want to leave it unattended. And I'll give you some instances about that. One more thing we can also check here too is, as I said, the power cord might warm up just a little bit, you know, with the current usage. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a measurement of the plug. Which let me get in there. Comes out to about 83 degrees Fahrenheit. And a little bit further down the cord, we'll go get a little bit closer. Oh, sorry for that window glare. Give me a second. About 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So as you can see, we are, once again, well within safe operating parameters, if you want to say. The rug and the couch are well below the below unsafe temperature ranges. Same with the power cord. So this is the best case scenario that you can be in. Now let's say, for example, maybe you're sitting on the couch here in the living room, and you want to maybe just go to the kitchen quickly, which is right across the way, obviously, and get something out of the refrigerator. Well, obviously, I'll put this to you now. You're still within the general area, so if you want to keep the heater on, if you want to just take something and bring it back to you quickly, that's probably okay. However, when you get up from the couch, you want to be absolutely sure that if you have a blanket here or something, you want to make sure it's all securely on the couch, that there's not going to be a chance where the blanket could possibly fall off, go in front of the heater, blanket gets too hot, starts a fire, and that's what happens. Now on the flip side, let's say, for example, you want to go to the kitchen, but you're not just taking something out of the refrigerator or the pantry or whatever. You're actually going to go there to, let's say, use the oven or use the stove, and you're not going to be here for a while. Don't take a chance. Turn the heater off. That way, when you go to the kitchen, this cools down. And now once the heater has cooled, there's no more of a fire hazard. Because let's say you're in the kitchen using the stove and then something falls off the couch or whatever, you're totally fine. With the heater off and cooled down, there's no fire hazard there anymore. So that's why if you're not going to be in this room for a while, or the heater's going to be unattended, turn it off. Don't take a chance. Just be safe and turn it off. One step further you could do, especially if, let's say, you're going to leave the house for an extended period of time, whether it's to just go outside or, you know, especially drive somewhere, don't just turn it off. Also unplug it. Now the heater is in the safest, let's say, status possible, because now with the heater fully turned off, cooled down, and unplugged, that fire hazard now is just an inanimate object. The heater cannot do anything in this state that it currently is. So if you're going to leave the house for any reason, turn it off and unplug it. Best thing that you can do in that situation for sure. One more point I would like to make here is that a lot of newer heaters do have tip-over switches. And it's basically what it sounds like. Basically, if the heater were ever to fall down, either forward or on its side, then a tip-over switch is supposed to detect that problem and cut power to the heater. That way it shuts off. However, if your heater has a tip-over switch, the number one rule about those is that you act like it does not have a tip-over switch or that it doesn't work. Because you don't want to rely on something like that if, like I just said, if by chance the heater falls down or if it tips over and it doesn't turn off, that could be a problem. So the safest thing to do is to never ever ignore the safety things from before and just think, oh, the heater has a tip-over switch? Okay, no problem. It'll just be fine the entire time. No. When you have a tip-over switch, always act like it does not have one. Can't be too careful with these. Now, of course, sometimes there may be another room that you may want to use the space heater in. And another room that people like to use heaters in, the bedroom. So obviously we're going to take that into consideration as well. This won't be probably as long as the living room, but I just want to show you some examples of how you can use these safely in a bedroom. So when you're in a bedroom, obviously the most readily combustible thing in a bedroom is the bed. So you want to take that into consideration. So every bedroom is going to be different, same with the living room. But as you can see here, if you wanted to just maybe have the heater in like a general space more or less, you don't want to really direct it to anyone, you just want to warm up the room. As you can see here, this is probably a very good spot for the heater to be, because you can see it's more than enough distance away from the bed, further away than it was on the couch. Now if you notice over here, there is a door, and you want to make sure that if you ever operate this door, it's not in any way going to catch the cord, possibly bump it to the heater and knock it over. As you can see here, this door is totally free to move and is not in any way going to interfere with the heater. So that's one thing to consider about if you put this into a bedroom, is that anything you move around, whether it be a door or, we'll get to this in a bit, a chair for a computer, you want to make sure that that chair is not in it, or door is in any way going to hit this heater and possibly knock it over. Now, as you can see here, I've moved the heater in the bedroom to a different location. Now, over here is my computer chair, which I do spend a lot of time sitting at, okay? Well, let's say, for example, I want to have the heater face more towards me so I could feel more of its heat. That's fine, but once again, we are well more than 3 feet away from the chair. And also, I have the heater directly plugged into the wall back there. But one thing I made sure of was, as you can see, there's plenty of slack on the wire. And you notice I have the wire going under the chair. Now the wire is not on the chair in any way. It's directly below it, as you can see. So the wire isn't resting on the chair in any way. It's on the floor like it should be. Now, for the most part, this would probably be okay, because as you can see, the heater's facing towards me, well away from the chair, and not towards the bed or anything. But there is one issue here quickly. Can you see what it is? I have a lot of clothing on there by that window seat. So obviously, the best thing to do would be to, just in case, even though it may be unlikely, you don't want this clothing possibly falling down in front of the heater, and that can cause your fire. So the safest thing to do is, once again, make sure there are no combustibles anywhere that can go in front of the heater. And there you go. Just like that, I removed a bunch of combustible material away from the heater. So now it's safer to operate. So now we're going to go ahead again, and we're going to turn it on fully, like it was before. And we're also going to, once again, let it heat up and take some temperature measurements and show you another example of how this is safe operating conditions. Okay, so the heater's been going now for just about 10 minutes, like it was before in the living room. So we'll go ahead and take our measurements of temperature. So let's go ahead and look at the area rug. All right. So looking at the area rug, about the same as before with the living room. We have about 101. 102, 104. Yeah, just about the same as before in the living room. So 106 or so. Okay. And naturally, as we go away, it cools down. All right. Just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and take a temperature. Let's go ahead and take the temperature of the chair. Just about here's where the heater's going. Look at that, 79 degrees, 80 degrees. You are totally fine. And just in case, let's go ahead and take a measurement of the bed temperature. Look at that, not even like, that's like room temperature. 74, 75. So once again, with the heater and the way that it's currently set up, it's in a very safe operating condition. And like before, you want to keep it attended. As you can see, it's not facing anything combustible. I took the clothes off the window seat, and it's at a very safe distance from the chair that I'd be sitting in. One more piece of advice I want to give you in regards to a bedroom is that, let's say by chance, you're done for the night and you're going to bed for the night, do not use that heater, okay? Once you're in bed for the night, do not use that. Like before in the living room, turn it off and unplug it. That's the safest thing that you can do when you're in the bedroom and you're sleeping for the night. So now let's go ahead and we're going to head downstairs again and give you some examples about extension cords and how to properly use those if you absolutely have to. So let's say your room is set up in such a way where, an extension cord really has to be used. It's really not easy to use the heater without it. Well, there are ways you can safely go about it if you absolutely have to, okay? Now, one of the reasons why a lot of times people don't want people using extension cords is because, for one thing, a lot of them don't understand about the current usage that the heater pulls and what current the wires can handle. Okay, now I found out about maybe a month or so ago that the heater that I'm using in this example, when it's fully on, uses roughly about 11 amps of current. Now, most people will plug the heaters into these kinds of wires, okay? This wire here is about either 16 or 18 gauge. Now, listen to that term very carefully, okay? Because that's gonna come into play very soon again. And this wire here is typically used for maybe something like let's say a table lamp, like the lamp doesn't reach the outlet, so you use an extension cord so the lamp can reach. Well, the thing is, these kinds of wires, okay, a 16 to 18 gauge wire is used to be about maybe last time I saw, I'm going to say roughly 5 to 7 amps, okay. And that heater, as I just said, pulls about 11 amps of current, which is well over what this wire is rated for, okay? And also, part of the problem too is that a lot of times people will get an extension cord that is just way too long for the application that they're trying to use it in. Now, the problem with that is, the longer the wire is, the more electrical resistance there will be, which means the wire could get warmer. Now think about that. If you're using a wire that's extremely long and not designed for the amperage that it's trying to put through it, then that's how electrical fire starts. What happens is, this insulation right here, okay, this is what not only protects you from touching the bare wire, but it's also what keeps your hot and neutral wires separated from one another. So if you try to run that kind of current through this kind of length and gauge of wire, what could happen is, for one thing, this insulation could melt off, and then it gets so hot to the point where it ignites, and there's your electrical fire. Now, the other issue is that if that may not happen immediately, what can happen is this insulation melts off in the middle, and then what happens? The two wires touch one another, you have an electrical short, wire gets even hotter, there's your fire. Now, in most cases, your circuit breaker should detect a short like that and trip the breaker. But once again, kind of like the tip-over switch in a heater, act like it is not there, okay? Don't just always rely on your circuit breaker, okay? And try to foolishly run current through a wire that's not designed to handle it. Be safe, you won't have any electrical problems. So there's the problem, okay? So, like I said, this is about 16 to 18 gauge wire, I believe, and it works opposite of what you may think. Basically, the lower gauge wire you have, the more current it can handle. So for example, a 14 gauge wire will handle more current than a 16 or 18 gauge wire. That's an important thing to remember, okay? This over here is a wire that is 12 gauge. As you can see right here, it is a much thicker wire, much thicker than the regular extension cord here, as you can see. As a matter of fact, I do still have the label here for it. Here it is right here. There it is. 12 gauge wire, and rated for 20 amps, which is well above what the heater operates. And that's a very safe thing to run. Admittedly, I bought this wire before I knew exactly what the heater pulls. If you got, let's say, a 14 gauge wire, 14 gauge wire typically handles about 15 amps of current, and that is pretty safe for the heater. But remember, not every heater is going to be the same. On high, some heaters will use more, some will use less. So it's always good to remember stuff like that. You want to get, and usually whatever the heater is rated for will usually be on the box or something. You always want to make sure that you have the right wire rated for the current, and you also want to make sure that the wire is as short as it possibly can be. Because once again, the longer the wire is, the more electrical resistance, the more it can warm up. So once again, along with the wire gauge and the proper current, you want to make sure that the wire isn't too long for the application that you're going to use it for. So to just give you an example of wire length, I have this big extension cord right here that we normally use for Christmas lights outside. Now, as you can see here, this is an insanely long wire. I think it's maybe 50 foot or 100. It could be 100 foot. I'm not sure. But regardless, anyway, even if we'll pretend that this wire has the same gauge as this 12 gauge wire. Doesn't matter. A wire this long, especially for a heater that's going to pull that kind of current, very unsafe. Because once again, more electrical resistance, could warm up, could get an electrical fire. You don't want that to happen, basically. And that basically is how you safely and properly operate a space heater. Now, as you can see, you want to have proper distance away. You want to have the proper distance from the heater to combustibles. You want to make sure that the cord is plugged in properly. You want to make sure it's not covered in any way. And if you absolutely have to use an extension cord, make sure it's the proper gauge and make sure it's the proper length. Keep all those things together, and you should have a very safe space heater operation and have no problems. You'll have a nice warm room. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.